Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone, welcome to my lecture. So to continue with our last lecture, so where we began with our discussion with aggregate demand. So in aggregate demand, we discussed about the planned and actual expenditures, and aggregate demand we already introduced the macro equations, grand macro equations. In fact, we reintroduced that because in our introductory lectures we already discussed about the grand macro equations, macroeconomic equations. So here so far we already discussed in our last lecture that how Keynesian cross, and then we also discussed about effect of the multiplier, and then there we have discussed only income. We consider only three components and try to understand. One is total income, and then consumption and investment. Investment expenditures, and in case of investment expenditures, basically firms planned investment expenditure that we spoke about it. So now today let us begin or move forward with government expenditures. So aggregate demand now it is C plus I that we already know, which is nothing, is basically Y plus G. We are introducing government expenditure or government spending. So now how multiplier effect actually looks like. So expenditure, mainly the expenditure raises the income or output in the economy, and then how government expenditures also sort of affected or connected with the total output, and then how they are actually impacted, we can show through the multiplier effect. So we can if we can give this as equation 1, so then we already know that C is equals to A plus BY. So from this we can actually put the value of consumption, which is A plus BY plus I plus G, can rewrite as A plus I plus G. So here we can write as Y equals to A plus I plus G by 1 minus multiplied by 1 minus B. So here we can see that 1 by 1 minus B can be written as A plus I plus G multiplied by small k. So k is multiplier, and here we can see that income, like total output, is also positively related to government expenditure, k times of the government expenditure. So multiplier, like 1 by 1 minus B, and B is less than 1. So overall small k, which is multiplier, is always positive, and therefore government expenditure and total output, they are positively related. So if government expenditure is high, like either through spending, direct spending, or transfer, then automatically it will also be positively, it will be reflected to the overall income. So now let's move further. Just a couple of policy discussions, whether in case of 1920s Great Depressions, or say in 2007-2008 financial crisis, when we see, and then this is also available in many of the books, and also popular debates these are, especially in the economic policies discourse. So take the example of US policy, and then 2009 stimulus plan. Also some people, they say that it is Obama's policy. So policy response was to recover from the deep financial crisis in 2007-2008. So policy response was in the US like 800 US dollars, 800 billion US dollars stimulus to boost aggregate demand. So that was the proposed, and components, major components were major increase in government spending, like say roads, infrastructure, schools. School means social infrastructure. Then government spending, which has a higher multiplier effect. So of 1.7 or 1.57, and then the tax, which is just like 0.99. So that you can also see from the ManQ, that particular example already given. And also spending directly boosts the demand and the job creation. So that also has a positive spillover effect on the overall output. So this spending, this external boost on the aggregate demand actually created more demand, and also created employment in the US. So now further, like when we already introduced government expenditure, so that is a government's policy, like economic policy, that is the role of public policy there. So now government expenditure, so we now add aggregate demand, government expenditure, now taxation. So from equilibrium income and then taxes, they are lesser proportional. And also this is the equation that we know, consumption expenditure. So because here total Y is the disposable income earlier that we consider. So total disposable income is nothing, is like Y minus T. T here is a tax. So tax, like after deducting the tax, the net income that an individual or nation as a whole, that the total income that we'll get, we call it disposable income, as already we know. So this is called disposable income. So C equals to A plus B Y minus T. So here disposable income. So we can actually see how multiplier effect from this equation. So again we can put the value in overall function, like say Y plus Y equals to C plus I plus G, and then here Y, C, we can put the value in place of C, like A plus B Y minus T plus I plus G. So here A plus BY minus BT plus I plus G. So here Y minus BY can write as equals to A minus B, A minus BT plus G. So here we can write like Y equals to A plus I plus G by 1 minus B, 1 by 1 minus B minus B by 1 minus B T. Government expenditure multiplier and also tax multiplier that we have seen. So we can write like here government expenditure multiplier is equals to 1 by 1 minus B, and tax multiplier is equals to minus B by 1 minus B. So this is what we get. So here, as we already know, 1 by 1 minus b we can write as k just for our reference, and then minus b by 1 minus b we can write as k small k star. So 2 points here. One is with the government expenditure, so this multiplier is like positive, and then with the tax it is basically the negative. So it will reduce by k star time, or impact will be at k star time, and then for the government expenditures that implication will be at the rate of k times. So this is what government expenditure multiplier and tax multiplier, they are connected. So here expenditure is increases or increased by k amount of the government multiplier, and reduces by is reduced by k star amount the tax multiplier. So now as we had given the example of policy responses during global financial crisis, especially in case of United States, so let us also see what are the fiscal stimulus that had taken place during financial crisis in 2007-2008 in India. The context, of course, is the global financial crisis that also has led down to India and also slowed down India's economy. Especially, we also have seen the decline in export, industrial output, and also overall investment. And government responses were there, just like in any other economy, just like in United States. India also released 3 stimulus package, and then also increased infrastructure spending, so that aggregate demand also will be there, and then employment can be generated. Then excise and service tax cut, so that it will be impacted positively on the output. As we already know that tax multiplier has the negative impact on the output. And then also we have seen during that period 2008-9 and then onwards expanded Manrega and rural development spending, because that's how employment and rural unemployment can be arrested and rural employment also can be generated, and that's how demand will be created, especially aggregate demand, overall aggregate demand, and also aggregate demand for the rural economy will be generated. So key economic idea that one can draw from this particular discussion is like government acted the demander of the last resort. Is basically it's not the individual or citizens or the public that who were creating the demand. So here is basically government were actually coming in place and then creating the effective demand, so that it can impact overall output and also employment. So public spending is seen as having a stronger multiplier effect than the tax cut. So this is quite kind of clear. Like we also know as a student of economics that government spending always has a positive impact on the overall aggregate demand, which actually lead to overall output, positive output, and tax always reduces the overall output. And that's how expansionary fiscal policy and reductionary fiscal policy that we understand. Like when we see the expansionary policy, there generally we see that government expenditure or spending is much more higher, or through tax cut. And for the reductionary policy, we see that taxes is increased, but then government expenditure actually reduces. So these are the policy level discussion. Again, we'll do it when we discuss about investment savings curve, and also liquidity and money multiplier curve. So outcome, what we had seen based on India's fiscal stimulus during 2008-9 crisis is like GDP growth rebounded and also stabilized employment and economic activity, especially through this kind of government expenditures or the stimulus package. So we can also see that in case of COVID-19, like the most recent past example, there we can see like government stimulus again was there during the crisis. Through various policies, like 15% of the GDP was spent through various policies under the Atmanirbhar, And then we have also seen the various successful welfare packages, like say small loan, like mudra policies for small scale or micro enterprises, and also for informal, targeting informal economy. And that's how we also have seen that economy was also getting restored through various policies, right? Especially this 15% of the total GDP towards to rebound the entire economic growth or economic activities. Moving forward, let's understand what is balanced budget multiplier that we are talking about. So balanced budget multiplier represents, or it shows, the change in equilibrium output resulting from one unit increase or decrease both in taxes and government spending simultaneously, and it reflects the fact that tax changes have a smaller per dollar or per rupees or per income impact on equilibrium income than do spending changes, right? So classical economists believe that balanced budget, like G will be equals to T, so that impact of taxes on the output is neutralized by an equal amount of government expenditure and the output stays at the full employment. So that is the classical economist belief. So now Keynes shows that expenditure multiplier, which is small k, is more powerful than the tax multiplier, and we have already shown that expansionary fiscal policy has have much more positive impact on the output than the reductionary fiscal policy through, for instance, through tax cut, and hence output changes by the same amount by the tax or government expenditure changes. So this is what the normalizes. So let us assume this, like say changes in the total output due to 1 unit change in government expenditure, plus if we add this changes in the total output due to 1 unit changes taxes, is nothing, is basically k star plus k, and we have the value of k and k star. So k is, value of k is 1 by 1 minus b, and value of k star is like small k here and small k star here is like minus b by 1 minus b equals to nothing. 1 minus b by 1 minus b is equals to 1. So this is what we call balanced budget, which is like sum of government expenditure multiplier and tax multiplier, which will be equals to 1. So let us just assume the previous numerical example where government expenditure and taxes are, say, assume that changes by 10 units. So delta y will be 1 by 1 minus b times of delta g, which is nothing, it's like government expenditure multiplier, and also delta t is nothing, is basically tax multiplier, what we have already shown, that minus b by 1 minus b by 1 minus b. It is nothing like is equals to like delta y, like say if we can expand this equation like 1 by p, and then we already know that suppose delta changes in the government expenditure and changes of the tax expenditure taxes is same amount, like 10 unit, and here say 10. So that means delta g here we can place in place of delta t, so delta g, and here 1 minus b by 1 minus b and delta g, and this is nothing, this is like cancel out, it's like 1. So even if government expenditure or tax multiplier or taxes are increased by any unit, then total output also will be increased by say 10 units, like equal amount of changes will also be reflected through the output. So I'll stop here. So these are the two references, that Freund and Mankiw, that I have used for this two lectures. So thank you very much for your attentions, and we'll continue this aggregate demand and aggregate supply, and then also we'll move to the next discussion on the fiscal policy and monetary policy and how it changes on the overall equilibrium conditions in the economy in our in-swing lectures. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'll see you in my next class.